figure skaters Anastasia Metelkina and Luka Barilova won Georgia's first ever medal at the Winter Olympics. This is also the country's first medal in figure skating. Metelkina and Barilova won silver in the pairs competition at the 2026 Games. They earned 221.75 points in 2 performances. European champion and 3-time Russian champion Dmitry Kozlovsky, who skates with Alexander Bykova in pairs, criticized the scores of Japanese pair Miura and Kihara for their free skate at the 2026 Olympics in Italy. The judges awarded Miura and Kihara a record 158.13 points. This broke the record held by Russians Anastasia Metelkina and Alexander Gulayamov, which had stood for nearly 4 years. No, I can say that this is definitely too much. 158 points for the free skate is absolutely too much for this pair. They absolutely don't skate for those scores. Are they now trying to say that 4 years ago, Sui Han would have lost to them with a quadruple twist? No, that's completely frivolous on the part of the judges. And giving them such scores is absolutely disgraceful and tactless, I think, towards the athletes who will be taking the ice now, Kozlovsky said on Akko Sport. The Olympic pairs have finally competed for the medals. The penultimate individual competition in Milan has come to an end. After the short program, Minerva Fabienne Hayes and Nikita Volodin of the German team were in the lead. The skaters took the ice with the final routine, made several mistakes, and squandered their lead. The duo leaves Milan with bronze medals. Anastasia Metelkina and Luka Barilova held on to second place after the short program. Pavel Sliusarenko's students set a historic record, winning the first Olympic figure skating medal for the Georgian team. Miura and Kihara, figure skaters from Japan, became Olympic champions. Previously, Japan had only won Olympic gold in men's and women's singles. With a stunning performance in the free skate, the skaters broke the world record previously held by Russians Anastasia Metelkina and Alexander Gulayamov. The pairs tournament at the 2026 Olympics might have seemed incomplete without Russians. But one Russian pair did participate indirectly. Before the free skate, Bykova posted a reel on social media showing how she and Kozlovsky performed this season, working on difficult elements. And she captioned it, "First, you spend years of your life to achieve your goal. You put in a lot of effort. You make countless attempts. You prove to yourself and everyone around you that you're worthy of your goal. And then, finally, you watch others achieve it." At the end of the video, Alexandra was sitting with her laptop, watching performances at the 2026 Olympics. I think Ilia Malinin was on the screen. At the same time, Kozlovsky was in the Akko studio, commentating the decisive pairs' performances with Ekaterina Barova. Olympic cycle leaders Miura and Kihara of Japan were performing in the penultimate warm-up. A lift failure in the short program dropped them to 5th place. But they pulled themselves together in the free skate. And how they performed a performance for which they were awarded 158.13 points. That's a world record. The previous one had stood since 2022. It belonged to our Anastasia Metelkina and Alexander Gulayamov, 157.46. Gulayamov, by the way, doesn't mind. Kozlovsky was infuriated by the Japanese's assessments. Here's his emotional monologue. "Well, what can I say? The athletes put on a very good performance for themselves. The elements were executed cleanly. Let's get to the point. I don't see any third-level twist there. Their parallel jump, of course, starts very, very far away, but then they close in. Overall, it was executed quite parallel and very well. The throws. Again, my partner has very good landings, but I don't understand why she can't hold this landing longer to demonstrate it. I think her speed and confidence in this position allow her to do so. The only other thing I can point out, and this is very important, is the very simple lifts. In terms of all the transitions, and overall skating, it's a very, very simple program. When we always discuss this at training camps as part of our preparation with coaches, choreographers, judges, and the federation, everyone always tells us, guys, you need to skate very complex programs in terms of transitions to get high scores. So what's the deal? Does that mean you don't? Look, the couple just scored 80 points for technique. They're getting a lot of points. However, in my opinion, they should have gotten points in some smaller areas. Because we remember those athletes who exceeded 150. And exceeding 150 is a very significant indicator for athletes of the highest caliber. I see a fairly smooth, very graceful partner. But when we look at the partner, I don't see any lines at all. We evaluate the couple as a couple. We can't evaluate only the partner and say, Here's the partner skating, here's the partner not skating, so we'll give them a 9.50, and so on. I see that the partner has decent skating skills for pairs skating. But I can't see the partner's line at all. They're about to get a very high second score, which will be around 155 again. No, Ekaterina, I can say that this is, of course, too much. A 158 for the free skate is completely excessive for this pair. They absolutely don't skate for those scores. What are they trying to say now? That 4 years ago, Sui and Han would have lost to them with a quadruple twist? No, that's completely frivolous behavior on the part of the judges. And giving them such scores is absolutely unseemly and tactless toward the athletes who will be taking the ice now. So what's going on? Can we just end the tournament already? It's impossible for the Japanese duo to receive a higher bonus for their flip throw than the Chinese duo. They were completely different throws in volume, scale, and approach. The judges were very motivated. They were motivated to achieve these scores, these results. But I think this is a bit much. This performance earned the Japanese Olympic gold. They not only made up a 7-point deficit to the leaders, Haase and Malinin, but also earned everyone 10 or more points. Their clean performance played a role, as did their opponents' mistakes. All 4 pairs who skated after the Japanese skated far from cleanly. Would Kozlovsky, the figure skater, have hindered this Japanese success? One can only guess. But if Dmitry had been among the judges, Miura and Kihara would have had a much more difficult time. Coach Rafael Arutunian commented on American figure skater Ilia Malinin's poor performance at the 2026 Olympics. Malinin failed his free skate and finished 8th in the individual event. Kazakhstan's Mikhail Shaderov won. All of us who were on Malinin's team now need to stop accepting condolences and openly acknowledge the mistakes that were made. Ilya's not to blame for anything, and I've already told him so. We, the adults, are to blame for failing to protect a very young man from making mistakes. For various reasons, I don't feel it's possible to comment further on this matter, although Ilia and I discussed many important things in our private conversations. I hope this will help him continue to live in the sport and enjoy what he does, Arutunian said. Russian figure skater Petr Gumennik commented on the judging at the Milan Olympics, where he placed 6th. In Russia, they say you should have been judged better. What do you think about that? I noticed at international competitions that judges evaluate not just a specific performance, but also all your previous performances, your rating, background, consistency, and your typical skating style. You could see this in ice dancing. Guillaume Cizerin made a few mistakes, but still won due to his high level of skill. I don't think that's quite right, but I was prepared for it. In sports, it would be more interesting to evaluate a specific performance in isolation. Although the idea that all your previous preparation is being evaluated is also valid, then the one who truly wins is the one who deserves it, said Gumennik. Russian figure skater Petr Gumennik and American Ilia Malinin held a joint training session in Milan. Also present at the training session were Vladimir Litvintsev from Azerbaijan and Andrew Torgashev from the United States. After the training session, I watched and supported Adelia. Then I went to the Milan Cathedral and booked a ticket for the balcony, said Gumennik. Women's figure skating has been Russia's main bet at the recent Olympics. This time, our only chance is Adelia Petrosyan. But the most important season for the country's best figure skater also turned out to be the most difficult. How did Adelia prepare for the biggest competition of her life? Last season, Petrosyan dreamed of the Olympics even before the news of her eligibility, before qualifying, and before her ticket to Milan. There's always hope. But I think we'll have to slog it out without international competitions for a little longer. It's fate, apparently, Adelia said in November 2025, unaware that the ISU would find a sophisticated way to subdue our team and gain entry. It seemed like this was it, the long-awaited opportunity. Petrosyan's last failure to win a competition, not counting team and jumping events, was in December 2022. She finished 5th at the Russian Championships, and then 4th after Kamila Valieva's disqualification. Since then, it's been nothing but victories. There were no other candidates for the Olympic bid. Adelia was the clear choice. But long-term planning, and the competitor in Italy was chosen a year in advance, is risky. And the likelihood of something going wrong is very high. Problems began already in the spring. Petrosyan suffered a groin injury. Due to a misdiagnosis, Adelia combined training and treatment, but it later turned out the injury was more serious and needed rest. After we discovered our injury, different doctors had completely different outcomes. Some said it was time to quit skating. Others said 3 months in a cast. One doctor said, "What's the problem? I can get her ready for the competition, Eteri recounted in the ACO series, The Tutbirds Method. Ultimately, Adelia arrived at the September qualifying tournament after a long break from full-fledged training. Ultra C jumps were out of the question. Petrosian won with a modest 209.63 points and without her signature elements. After the Beijing qualifying round, the ISU returned to isolation. The ISU clearly overdid it with its admission of figure skaters, allowing them only to qualify. In speed skating and short track, also ISU disciplines, our skaters were allowed to compete in the World Cup and World Tour. In cross-country skiing, neutral status holders have no restrictions on the number of competitions. And yet the skaters were tormented, lured with the competition, but banned until the Olympics. Petr, Gumennik and Petrosian returned to Russian competitions seemingly with the same status Olympic participants, but expectations of them were different. Gumennik's sixth place in Milan seems very respectable, despite the fact that he missed out on a medal by just a hair. Of course, Petr also bore the burden of responsibility, but he handled it seemingly effortlessly. Honing complex content, confidently giving interviews, and joking about strategy. But Adelia is weighed down by this responsibility. She bears it not like a banner, but like a cross. And our figure skating elite, and others, are certainly not helping to relieve Petrosian of any burden. Natalia Bestemianova. Petrosian absolutely needs to skate cleanly, so that there's nothing to complain about. So she can come and win the Olympics. Ekaterina Bobrova. Petrosian is the only option where we can expect a top 3 finish. Alexander Julin. I think Petrosian will regain her challenging skills by the Olympics and be a top contender for gold. Two-time Olympic artistic gymnastics champion Lydia Ivanova. I wish Petrosian to win the Olympics. I don't even want to think about second place. Ilia Averbic. Everyone should set the highest goal for themselves. Adelia is absolutely capable of becoming an Olympic champion. Brian Jaubert. Winning Olympic gold is difficult, but Petrosian is capable of it. Hockey player Dmitry Silantyev. She's a great athlete, a strong figure skater, and will be a contender for gold. So, Petrosian hears expectations of victory from everywhere. It's no surprise that her phone wallpaper also features the 2026 Olympic gold. After qualifying for the Games, the race for Ultra C began. To close the gap with the Japanese and Americans in the second mark, Adelia needs complex elements. Especially when starting from the first warm-up, without a rating, without a qualifying record as was the case with Gumennik. In previous seasons, Petrosian performed a triple axel, quad loop, flip and toe loop. Her jumps weren't always consistent, and many were ultimately abandoned. But Eteri Tutbirds had no intention of approaching the Games with simple content. Skating without Ultra C at the Olympics makes absolutely no sense. She's not yet confident in her jumps. Petrosian didn't compete in January, unlike Gumennik, who skated in St. Petersburg as a pre-Milan training session. Moreover, Adelia was experiencing pain again, and this was affecting her attitude. I get really worked up during training, and when things don't go well, I scold myself a lot. A lot can go wrong. This path to the Olympics certainly isn't smooth. But there is one observation that gives hope. It was made by Tutbirds, as if the path to the Olympics shouldn't be easier. So far, no one has had an easier path. Only one athlete had an easier path, but it didn't lead to anything good. Valieva had a very simple season. Everything went as planned. Zagitova's legs were absolutely crushed. Zhenya Medvedeva and Sasha Trusova both went to the Olympics with broken legs. Shcherbakova suffered a severe case of coronavirus, pneumonia. She had a fever of 39°C, 102, 4F for 6 months, and she could barely walk. That is, it seemed like everyone had it, except for one. I don't know, maybe it really does have to be hard to be good? You just have to think positively. We are going through these trials now so that everything will be fine. We just have to get through them, really. And this list of stars is the best reminder. Gold is expected not only from Petrosian, but also from Tutbirds. It's a system that hasn't failed at recent games, thanks to Eteri's team always preparing several top athletes. And if there's only one chance, then everyone hopes for the best. First and foremost the athlete and the coach. Although Tutbirds herself was already cautious in January, we ourselves changed this world at some point. Maybe they were extraordinary athletes, no way, but definitely. And, naturally, we wanted to show what they can do. We brought it out of them, showed it. Now it's like we have to live up to it. I just completely disagree with the statement I'm used to my athletes always winning gold. No, it really happens in different ways. You're expecting something there. It's difficult here. Tuppence is an incredibly experienced and wise specialist. No matter what decisions she makes, she ultimately emerges victorious. Perhaps her hard-as-good approach will work this time too?